President Bola Tinubu yesterday called for increased cooperation among government agencies, the private sector, and international partners to boost economic growth, enhance competitiveness, and maintain stability in the country. The call by the president comes on the heels of emerging positive economic indicators suggesting that recent reforms by the administration are beginning to yield results. Addressing the 30th Nigerian Economic Summit organized by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG, and the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning in Abuja, Tinubu, who was represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, outlined his administration's renewed hope agenda designed to create an environment that fosters sustainable economic growth and shared prosperity. Arise News correspondent Nkechi Nana has the report.
The Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG, was born out of a desire to forge a unified platform between the public and private sectors. What began in 1993 with private sector leaders representing key industries has grown into a vital forum for shaping Nigeria's economic future. Now, 3 decades later, NESG continues its mission, providing crucial recommendations to the government in an effort to address the country's pressing economic challenges. Vice President Kashim Shettima reiterates the government's commitment to the NESG recommendations, underlining their importance in the administration's broader economic goals.
Our objective is to ensure that the Nigerian economy is inclusive, where small and medium-sized enterprises can thrive alongside large corporations, and where every citizen, regardless of location or background, can benefit from economic opportunities.
The chairman of the Economic Summit, Niyi Yusuf, emphasizes the need for deep reforms, reflecting on key takeaways from last year's summit and urging swift implementation.
Government must prioritize institutional reforms, especially the reduction of the cost of governance, for instance, by implementing the Orosanye report, and also accelerating the privatization and commercialization of many underperforming national assets.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, expresses the government's intention to accelerate reforms based on NESG's recommendations.
The summit recommendation continue to inspire government to reform critical sectors of the economy. For instance, the 29th summit emphasized the urgent need to tighten foreign exchange rules, broaden official market, and harmonize fiscal and monetary policies for a balanced approach to economic stability. Collaborative action for growth and competitiveness and stability reflects the critical imperatives required to sustain our economic growth and development and improve the lives of all.
As the summit enters its second day, attention shifts to key topics such as infrastructure development, fiscal reforms, and the evolving role of oil and gas in Nigeria's economy. Nkechi Nana, Arise News.
Thank you, Kechi, for that report. Congratulations to the NESG at 30. And this is quite an important fora where they come together to discuss, and as Kechi talked about in our report, in some ways influence the economic direction of Nigeria. Very frank conversations we had on day one yesterday. When I take on this story, especially the president's speech through the vice president on efforts by his administration.
Okay, so I mean, my take on this, like you said before, congratulations to the NESG. There are lots of great people out there and ably led by Mr. Niyi Yusuf. What I would just like to say is this. I think there were a lot of frank conversations, but there were not a lot of truthful conversations. And this is on the heels of the need to collaborate across governmental agency and all of that, in terms of revenue and all of that. Yes, the government has made some giant strides as regards that. There's a bill that's been pushed now that's going to turn into National Revenue Service and all of that. The mindset will be a lot of taxation to be able to get money to be able to run the economy. But how do you tax an economy that is already weak? An economy that sees a lot of insincerity? Ajayi Abdulkadir of the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria was talking, for instance, that you increased by about 250% electricity tariff. So how do you want Nigerian business to be able to compete effectively? despite the increase in the Band A tariff, there's no still power. I didn't have power for most parts of the weekend. You still hear national grid collapsing and all of that. So when you see all of that, and you see the fact that the economy is at an all-time low, dealing with high level of inflation because of the policies not thought through, and you see a World Bank trying to endorse the hardship, saying that we should steady the course for the next 15 years with these reforms, then why wouldn't the World Bank tell themselves the truth, or tell Nigerians the truth, as regards the level of hardship that is going on? They are just concerned about floating the currency, removal of subsidy. But the subsidy regime, the corruption that aroused the subsidy regime, that makes it even difficult for it to trickle down to the citizen, they don't even talk about that. I think the most important thing we should do is to be able to go back to the capacity of building honest institutions with lesser corruption. If there's less corruption, we'll be able to pay subsidies and help the people. I'd campaigned for subsidy removal in the past, like I normally say. But when you look at the economic conditions now, as at then, I didn't have the information that the NNPC was spending about 4 trillion on refineries that were not working. I didn't have the information of the moribund nature of the refineries and the corruption and the shenanigans going on. So government is not handling their own part, and these reforms are hurting the people. In wrapping up, please, I need to make this very important point. Darren Acemoglu, that wrote the book, Why Nations Fail, was recently awarded a Nobel Prize for Economics. And the research was on institutions. Except we get institutions right, we will not have the riches we need in Nigeria, and people will constantly suffer.
All right, Dr. Batim.
Okay, very quickly. For me, in all of this conversation, the important point was made by a gentleman called Gill, Mr. Gill, the senior vice president of the World Bank. And he was saying that, look, the problem with Nigeria is that the people who have benefited from the oil wealth of Nigeria are the same persons who are running the economy, and that the people are in dire straits because their interests have not been taken into account. This is the point that we have always made on this program, that the interest of the Nigerian government should be the welfare and security of the people. And we have had an outsider telling us that the rich people have buffers, but the poor people have no buffers. We needed an outsider to tell us that. And I think that's an important message coming on the same day that the Nigerian Economic Summit Group was celebrating its 30th anniversary. Number 2, now the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, I congratulate them on the occasion of their 30th anniversary. They made media rounds, recently. Mr. Udeme Ufot, the U in SO and U, is now the chairman of that body. And they visited media houses. They visited also Arise News. And I was at that meeting. And one of the questions that I asked the CEO of the group is that, okay, 30 years, what impact have you people made on policy formulation and implementation in Nigeria? In fairness to the gentleman, he was able to say, well, we have made significant impact. We said this, this resulted in this policy, this resulted in this advancement. So on that ground, we can say, the NESG, Nigerian Economic Summit Group, as a think tank, it's a very useful institution, and that we wish them many more years of relevance. Now, what are the other issues that came up at that event? Vice President Shettima spoke, Kashim Shettima, senator, spoke at that event, and it was reassuring everybody that Nigeria is committed to, making more advancements on the economic sector. I think Bagudu, the Minister for Budget Planning and National Planning, also spoke at that event, and we are told that the Tinubu administration is moving this country forward. But that's a question that ordinary Nigerians can answer. is this economy moving forward? In some of the reports, we have been told that growth rate, GDP, this year is 3.3%, and next year it will be 3.6%. Is that an achievement for an economy of over 200 million people? The kind of GDP growth that can move this economy should be a double-digit growth. If you don't have a double-digit growth, we're just wasting our time. And which takes me to the point made by Otumba Francis Messioye, who made the point that, look, the manufacturing sector is having problems. Because the whole issue, as Otumba Messioye indicated at that ceremony, is about productivity. We're running an economy that is oil-dependent, totally unproductive. The SMEs have failed. Other sectors of the economy have failed. So where is production? Even the refineries are not working. So this is not about speech making, okay? The Tinubu administration has done a good show-up, photo-op, Minister Bagudu, Vice President Shetima, saying that they are committed to moving this economy forward. But the Nigerian people will measure it in terms of practical impacts on their lives. How many jobs are they creating? How many opportunities are they giving? All this quoting IMF, quoting World Bank. Okay, now the senior vice president, Mr. Gee from World Bank, on the same day, has told them that, look, the interest should be the lower people. We, the suffering people of Nigeria, who is thinking about us? This is the big question in the Nigerian economy. The NESG, they can enjoy their 30th anniversary and summit. They can say what they like. They can tell us these are their recommendations. The question is, who will listen to them? Is there enough capacity to listen to them? These are the issues on the table, beyond chit-chat, holding talks.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be beyond conversations, and the truth is that that speech by Senator Kashim Shettima highlighted this administration's efforts for broader economic improvement, economic prosperity. And two of the measures he had highlighted in his speech, one, fuel subsidy removal, and two, unification of the exchange rate. And these are contentious policies. We've talked about it a number of times on this table, how, yes, these were critical policies to have been made, and they have been talked about for many years prior to this administration, but the way in which it was handled is what the challenge is. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of listening on the part of this administration or government. I say this because when we talk about fuel subsidy removal, going alongside what the senior vice president of the World Bank, Mr. Indemil Gill, said, he had said that, and actually he spoke the truth, interestingly spoke the truth, and painted the picture of what Nigeria currently is, an economy that favors the elite and has favored the elite since the oil boom, saying that oil wealth hasn't trickled down to the most vulnerable in society. So let me park that to one side and continue with what I was saying. So in terms of cushioning the effect for the most vulnerable, a number of things and policies that this administration said they were going to implement, which hasn't been done, and which as a way of reminder, just to see how we can move things forward. Because we can make speeches and open up the NESG by talking about how the gains are coming up and all that. But if the people do not feel the effects, then it falls empty. It's the people who really can evaluate just how successful the policies are, and of course, economic indices. Number one is conditional cash transfers. We've talked about this a number of times. Yes, they said they'll evaluate the cash register. This is supposed to have been handled by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. What is happening with that ministry? Is it redundant? Is it moribund? What's happening with the minister there? Is there any activity happening there? Who is signing off on these projects? Who are the people benefiting from these projects? Number two is the implementation of the new minimum wage. We talked about it yesterday, how in many states, a lot of governments have been unable to implement the 70,000 naira minimum wage. It means that Nigerians, despite the increase in many things, are still earning 30,000 30,000 naira, or in some states, less than 30,000 naira. These are the issues that Nigerians want to talk about. So we can come together at a summit like this and discuss and analyze. But the truth is that if the people don't feel the impact of your economic policies, then it's dead, it's failed. And that's the unfortunate thing. So this administration needs to work a bit harder in convincing Nigeria by action that their policies, economic policies, are indeed working for the good of the common man and not favoring a small group of the elite.